Oh my god, you guys, Port Priority 8 was an absolutely insane tournament from start to finish. I went over what could happen before the tournament, now the tournament's concluded. Let's talk about what happened, the storylines, the rankings that probably are affected. Let's get into all of it right now because there was so much to go over, and of course, I will be going over some analysis later in different videos. So first off, I have seen people talk about that Port Priority 8 was the biggest tournament of the year, and I'm just showing the TTS for the Lumi rank to show that that isn't necessarily the case. SmashCon was still like a third bigger than it, which is kind of crazy, like the value of 12,000 versus almost 10,000, so maybe like 20% bigger than it. That's absolutely insane, first off, but obviously this is one of the three P-tier tournaments of this season, being Port Priority 8, SmashCon 2023, and Kagadibi number 11. All of those won by different people now. Super SmashCon 2023 was won by Akola, Port Priority 8 was won by Sonics, and Kagadibi number 11 was won by Mia. And then if you go into the S and S plus tier tournaments, you can add Spargo, another Akola win, and also Gluttony to the list of major tournament winners this season. I'm saying that just for the future of like why the rankings or like how I think they're affected in the future. So now let's get into the tournament itself, which of course, as I mentioned, Sonics won the whole tournament, beating Akola, Mia twice, losing to Mia once, as well as beating plenty of other top players. Of those included are Cola, Pocket, and Big D. I definitely think that this solidifies Sonics as top 4 again on the Lumi rank, being, you know, the top 4 being Akola, Mia, Sonics, and probably still Spargo. But Sonics, again, just proving after all these majors, like after his like kind of worst performance at SmashCon, he has just been on a tear, winning a bunch of things, getting top 2, only losing to the super top players, still dominating the online scene. So he's been an absolutely incredible player, and it was incredible to watch the grand finals. I was personally a fan of it, even though I'm not particularly fond of watching Sonic or Game Watch for the most part. It was such high level play because both Sonics and Mia are amazing. Mia honestly had, until he lost to Sonics in Winners Finals, the most impressive tournament run because he didn't drop a game until Winners Finals at one of the hardest tournaments this year. Starting off in top 128, he beat Frog 3-0, Gact 3-0, then in top 32 he beat T 3-0 and Light 3-0, and then in winners semifinals he beat Ken 3-0. So he just wasn't losing until he ran into the wall that is Sonics. Again, Mia easily solidified himself as a top 3 or 2 player at this point, because I still think his results overall have been fantastic. I mean, third at SmashCon, he's won a super major, and then a second at one of the other biggest majors of this year, so he's been on a tear. And as far as I'm aware, he hasn't had any bad performances either. Like, he hasn't had that random dip that Sonics and Spargo have. His Game & Watch is just so incredibly solid and just chokes the life out of everyone he plays, and it is impressive because 3-0ing all these top players when there are so many upsets and so much craziness that happened is nothing short of incredibly impressive. Third place, we have Akola, who only lost to the top 2 placers, Mia and Sonics. Again, Akola is incredibly consistent, only losing to the best of the best players. He had a couple of close calls, like I know his game 5 with Apollo Kage was pretty close, but again, Akola, amazing, clearly a top 1 or 2, in my opinion, 1 player in the world right now, but you know, he did look a little shook versus Sonics, so we're gonna have to see how that plays out in the future because that was a great set. And rounding out the 3 of Japanese top 4, we have Ken, who, again, Sonic is a very consistent character, and he's been playing incredibly well recently. He also had the really good placement at SmashCon, so this kind of adds to his resume of him easily being like a top 10 player. Most notably, he finally got his first win on Spargo this tournament, because he had played Spargo a couple of times and always lost Game 5, and he finally won a Game 5, and of course, this was a very big deal for what would happen later in the tournament with Spargo. So yeah, Ken played amazing, and I'm probably going to be going over at least some of his sets. For the 5th placers, we have Umeki and Light. Umeki, this is his first time getting top 8 at an American major for any game he's entered. He came over here a lot during Smash 4, but this is his first top 8 at a major, and it was a super duper major. So Umeki, obviously fantastic Daisy player who's one of the most technical in Smash 4. He's always been amazing, but he hasn't had that breakout performance in the US, although I'm not even sure if he's top 8'd in Japan, at least since, you know, the pandemic. So I'm not 100% sure about that, but Umeki played fantastically. I'm obviously going to be going over some of his sets because, you know, I've been talking a lot about Mutates, but we have another time. We have time for another Peach player, Daisy player. And of course, Light's still one of the more consistent players in North America. Got 5th, had to overcome his Fox Ditto brethren, the number 2 Fox, Kaninabe, just like how Umeki had to overcome their princess, you know, counterpart in Mute. These sets were kind of crazy. I think I'm going to go over these two sets in like their own video, not related to Light or Kaninabe or Umeki or Mute, because this is just fantastic. I love the fact seeing two Dittos in top 8 is very rare, especially two characters that aren't common, like Peach, Daisy, and Fox. So that's very, very exciting. This top 8 had such amazing players. It was a joy to watch and to just see how this progressed. So that's the top 8. But of course, a lot happened farther outside the top 8 in the top 32. Cola, continuing to be outside of his retirement, got 9th yet again, only losing to two fantastic players in Sonics and Mute, two players that are like extra top in like the US/North America scene. So great stuff to Cola overall. I didn't see any of his sets here either, so gonna be going over those because I forgot to do it at Let's Make Moves Miami. My bad, y'all. Then we also saw Hurt, Pocket, and Tweak get 9th. Of course, Hurt, one of the most fantastic snake players, the best snake right now in Japan, and one of the best snakes in the world, and he placed the highest of all the snake players here, and a lot of the other ones were here, including MVD, Apollo Kage, Kronos. So, you know, really good stuff there, beating Beast Mode Paul, T, and then eventually falling to Umeki. Who did he lose to in winners? Oh, he lost to Light 3-2 in winners, so, you know, very close set against one of the players that are super, super good versus Snake. We had Kaninabe somehow beat Pocket. I don't know how that happened. I would need to watch the set because I feel like Fox versus Steve is so difficult sometimes, and that's very, very impressive. Obviously, Kaninabe good against Steve because just everyone in Japan I feel like is pretty good versus Steve. And then we had Light versus Tweak. Tweak unfortunately got double Diddy Kong, losing to Kaninabe the round before top 32, you know, before this Kaninabe Leo set, which again, crazy that Kaninabe beat Leo and Tweak, and it was insane. But Tweak lost to Kaninabe and then Light, so losing to the two Fox players when Fox is known to be a difficult matchup for Diddy Kong, so pretty rough there. In other stories, we had the top two Mexican players, MK Leo and Spargo, both tie for 17th, losing to Kaninabe and Mute for MK Leo, and Ken and Riddles for Spargo. Of course, that kind of makes sense, right? Riddles has beat Spargo before. You know, Ken has always brought Spargo close, so that kind of makes sense for 17th. And then Leo was playing very well, but barely lost to Kaninabe 3-2. And then Mute was just on a warpath and beat him 3-0, showing that the Genesis victory he had in winners against him was not a fluke. And he probably low-key just got nervous in grand finals. As the Florida brain big Mute fan, that's what I'm gonna say. We had a couple of surprising players in the top 32, not because they're not good, but just because they normally end up just getting slightly outside of it. In Kiarash, the SoCal Luigi player, this has been the best Luigi result in the US in a long time, and then as well as Show's Meta Knight, also Game & Watch player from New York, who also used to live in NorCal, had a fantastic run. So I was just looking back, Show actually lost in the round before top 128 in round 1 pools, so Show actually had a very long losers run because he lost at what, like 129th place, and then he ended up beating Spare 3-0, Cosmos 3-2, Silver, who was on a run of themselves, and Skinny the Pooh, of course, the Mario that beat MK Leo at Rise and Grind, also beat Shootone here. Let me find it. Yeah, beat it here and almost beat Pocket 3-2. So again, clearly a fantastic Mario player. So Show ended up winning that, which that seems difficult. I feel like Meta Knight versus Mario is not an easy matchup, but then eventually losing to Gluttony. Of course, Gluttony, an incredibly hard player to beat, but you know who beat Gluttony, and honestly, who gave all of Europe a really hard time? Beast Mode Paul, the hero player that stomps me at regionals and locals pretty often. Beast Mode Paul did absolutely fantastically this tournament with his hero, beating Gluttony 3-1, and then when he dropped into losers, beat Andres FN, the Spaniard Terry, and I'm pretty sure I mentioned that Paul could do this, so I'm pretty happy that I was right about that. And then in losers also beat Siski 3-0 before falling to Hurt, so great run from the US's premier hero player and one of Florida's best. Again, there was so much stuff to go over, right? Riddles got 9th, Mutes had a crazy losers run, you know, beating Apollo Kage and Leo and Riddles and Cole before falling to Umeki. Meister continues to do well, and we see him still get in the top 32s before losing to Pocket. Steve Game & Watch seems so hard unless you're Mia, and Mia is so crazy good at that matchup, it doesn't make sense. I mean, it does make sense. He has to play Akola like all the time at majors, so it makes sense. Shattuck continues his good streak of placements at top 32. We had MVD do very well, almost beating MK Leo, actually getting reverse 3-0'd. We had Anathema somehow 3-0 Karama, even though that matchup seems bad, so Anathema still back on his game. But this tournament, in my opinion, still continued to show the fact that Japan just dominates these tournaments. Of course, Sonics won, but 3 of the top 4 were from Japan. 4 of the top 6 were from Japan, and 5 of the top 8 were from Japan, right? We had Akola, Mia, Ken, Umeki, and Kaninabe. That is kind of insane, and of course, Japanese players riddle the rest of this top 12 and 32. Even if you don't see someone like Shootone in top 32, which is crazy to me that he didn't make top 32. Kiarash again losing in his round 1 pool, similar to what Sho did, and then brought it back all the way to top 32. He lost to Beastly 3-1, which that makes sense. Beastly's been playing incredibly well recently, and then rattled off wins versus Konga, versus Jojo DeHobo, the best Toon Link in the country, then against Peebnut, the best Mega Man in the country, and against Zomba 3-1 after Zomba lost to Umeki 3-2. SkyJ also beat Riddles 3-2. Osimo beat Mutace, Oshimo beat JDV. Like, there were so many crazy sets that happened here at Port Priority. It would be basically impossible to go over them all. Oh, Shattuck almost beat Light. That seems difficult. And then we saw T beat Meister, which has been happening recently. Gact got double Game & Watched, kind of like how Tweet got double Foxed, which is a little bit rough. And we saw a whole variety of characters in both the top 8 and the top 32. We had the very aggressive characters in terms of Fox, we had the mid-range characters in terms of Peach, and then of course we had Game & Watch, Sonic, and Steve, which those are kind of just going to be constant in the top 8s if Mia, Akola, and Sonics are there, like, and of course Ken as well. So what does this tournament mean for the rankings? I definitely think that it drops Spargo to the definitely at best number 3 or 4 slot, because Akola and Mia did well at SmashCon and well here. I think that's all it is, right? And he didn't win Terra either, his S tier tournament or S plus tier tournament. So Spargo definitely still in the top 5, but it can't carry him through not top 8ing top 2 of the 3 biggest tournaments this season, and he didn't also top 8 the third one because he wasn't in Japan. Of course, he still has his win at Delfino Maza. He still has some really good head-to-heads, but it's just not as good of a season for him in a season that Sonics has been doing incredibly well, only losing to the top of the top players. He won this tournament, you know, and Akola and Mia are just the beacons of consistency, basically never placing outside of top 8, especially Akola not really placing outside of top 3 this season, and with the biggest tournament win at SmashCon. So I definitely think the top 2 players are going to be Akola and Mia this season. Sonics will probably be number 3, and then Spargo will probably be number 4, although I could see it be Gluttony being number 4 as of now, because he won Terra. He didn't go to SmashCon, so that's not really a point against him doing poorly, and then he won Rewired Fest and has a really good head-to-head with players like Tweak and Spargo, and, you know, who was the other player? And Light. So he's been doing really well against the top of the top. And honestly, here he didn't honestly make it to, like, this is probably maybe what keeps him out of 4th is he didn't do good here. He got, what was it? He tied for Spargo and Riddles here with 17. So I'm not sure how that's going to play out, but this is still really interesting, right? We have Riddles with good head-to-heads with a couple people beating Leo and Spargo at 2 recent majors. Light is still being consistent, even though he did have that bad Rise and Grind placement, but he's still doing very well. DeBuzz did pretty well here. He got 17th, you know, which is like in this tie with all these crazy players. So the second at SmashCon might keep him in the top 10. But yeah, I don't know. As the season wraps up, it's kind of crazy to see where all these players are going to be, because there are so many amazing players, and it's so hard to be at the top of all of them, which is why the consistency of players like Mia, Sonics, and Akola is nothing short of incredibly impressive. And again, less so Sonics there because of his 49th at SmashCon, but like still, he's incredibly impressive. There are so many really, really good players. I don't know necessarily what I missed, so let me know down in the comments if you think I missed something. I'm going to be going over a ton of sets here. Do not worry, I swear actually not like Let's Make Moves Miami, so I'm looking forward to videos at the very least on Kaninabe, as well as Umeki, as well as the Dittos in that top 8, as well as probably something with Akola and Mia or Sonics or something like that, even though I feel like I make a lot of videos about them just because they keep winning. So I don't know, let me know down in the comments below what you want. As always, social media and partner stuff is down below, and I will see you all next time.